All right, good morning. Or as everyone says in Israel, Boker Tov. Boker Tov is Hebrew for good morning. I was saying that a lot the past couple weeks. And you can also say Shalom. But how exciting is it? Today is December 1st. You know what that means. 2 months to the date of the first Iowa caucus, the first election in the nomination process. 2 months to today. And so I want to look at two candidates who seem to be making their move. First is Ted Cruz, and you had a warm up, or will have a warm up on Ted Cruz this morning, and he's concentrating on evangelical voters. And your warm up is going to have you look at what an evangelical is and the potency of that particular electorate. And there's a word for you. We studied that word at the beginning of the year. Do you remember what it means? Electorate. You should look that specific word up if you don't know what it means. But look, Cruz is making a move. Two recent polls in Iowa, the most two recent, show him having risen to second place, overleaping Ben Carson, and neck with Donald Trump there. So Iowa is where Ted Cruz is making his play with the evangelical voters, and I want you to start analyzing that campaign strategy on his part. The other candidate is somebody we mentioned briefly yesterday, and that is Christie. Is there any life to his campaign? He seems to be making a little bit of a move in New Hampshire, and the endorsement of that New Hampshire paper, the Gazette, is that going to be enough to propel him up into the top tier of candidates, where he'll be able to be viable? So keep an eye on those two candidates. Right now, the buzz seems to be on them, Ted Cruz and Christie, while Marco Rubio slowly rises in the polls. And let me ask you this question. Where's Bernie Sanders? Anybody see Bernie Sanders? Is he still rising? Has he plateaued? Is he sinking? What's going on with Bernie Sanders? Where does he now stand 2 months out from Iowa? Should look into that and know what the recent polls are showing about Mr. Sanders. So that's a little framing of politics. Today we're going to, in class, look at civil rights. We're going to just have a quick lecture. I'd like to try to do it in 15 to 20 minutes. We're going to look at Dred Scott, Plessy, and then Brown versus Board. We're going to look at those three cases together and the arc of civil rights as it pertains to that arena. Then we're gonna quickly talk about the civil rights movement, but you studied that in U.S. history, and then we'll conclude by looking at affirmative action and where the court stands on that issue today, based on the Bakke decision in quotas having to do with admission requirements. So good stuff ahead. But lots of things happening just in general. Did you see that Amazon released the new, I don't want to call it a template, but a graphic of what would be the Amazon Air delivery? I got a short little video clip. How do you like your packages delivered to you by drone, via drone, floating right into where you've set up your delivery area, the pod coming in? Gives a new meaning to Air Jordans, right? I know, it's a terrible joke, but it had to be done, had to be made. And one other thing I noticed today, NASA has announced that, look, we have sent spaceships to all sorts of places in this solar system, and one recently just left the solar system and is still traveling out there, went beyond Pluto. But the one thing we have never done is sent an aircraft or a spaceship I'm calling them spaceships, I don't know, to the sun. So NASA has just announced that they're going to send a spacecraft to the sun. So this is interesting because when we talk about the federal budget, which we're going to be talking extensively about sooner than later, and you've been warned for months about this, what are our economic priorities as a country? Do we have billions of dollars to be investing in the space program, to be sending craft to the sun for research and development? Or do we need to be investing that money in bombs to be blowing up terrorist cells that are in ISIS? Or maybe not even in bombs, but in educational development camps for the Syrian refugees, trying to teach them about freedom and democracy, that if they're coming to America, they should learn? Or is that just something they'll pick up once they naturally assimilate? These are things you have to contemplate when you consider who you're going to be voting for in this upcoming election, and in local and state elections as well. So I have a video clip on that too I'm going to try to sneak in during class today, and we'll talk about those economic priorities that'll help us set up our discussion and understanding of the federal budget when we get to that chapter after, well after winter break. But what's going on in the world today? Well, President Obama is attending the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Paris, and he met this morning. We've talked about the time difference all the way over in France. He met with President Erdogan. It's pronounced Erdogan. And do you know who he is, President Erdogan? What country? You should. He's been in the news. Well, he's the president of Turkey. And you know, Turkey is a NATO power. So Obama met with Erdogan, and they're going to hold a press conference at just before 9 a.m. Eastern. So that's probably already happened by the time you're watching this. Obviously, they have a lot to talk about. Turkey is a nation that shot down the Russian jet aircraft that they claim came into their airspace. So President Obama at the Global Climate Change Conference, meeting with Erdogan. John Kerry, you know who he is attending the North Atlantic Council meetings in Brussels. And the topics that these men are going to talk about are the same things that we're talking about. Now, in Congress, Defense Secretary Ash Carter is testifying at a House Armed Service Committee hearing on U.S. strategy in Syria. So maybe find yourself some clips of that to see what U.S. strategy is by the Defense Department. The House representatives are going to be asking him questions. That's at 10 a.m., so that will have happened by the time you're watching this as well. Don't you like how we're behind everything on Pacific Standard Time? We've got to live on that East Coast time. We've got to. It's almost 10 o'clock there. The Supreme Court continues to hear arguments today. Do you know what cases they're hearing about? And how about some economic indicators? You know what happens Friday. Friday is the first Friday of the month. Aren't you already starting to bubble with some excitement for that jobs report? Based on the last jobs report, this is a very, very interesting jobs report. So what are the top economists in the country predicting for amount of jobs gained? Do you know? I actually don't know. I haven't looked at it yet. We've been busy with Thanksgiving and coming home and getting back settled into class, but we should look into that. So that's a frame of political events going on today. We want to be alert and aware of all these developments while keeping our eye on the fact that we have to master the information regarding civil rights. So we'll talk about civil rights today. Looks like tomorrow we'll have our Chapter 5 test on civil rights. We'll back that up with the unit exam on civil liberties and civil rights. You guys did so good on the civil liberties test that I anticipate that knowledge being internalized and not just was on the top of your brain. So you should do well on the unit exam. You should be excited for that. So lots of things going on. Hope you're focused. I hope you're serious. I hope you're ready for advanced scholarship and learning in government and politics, because that's what's going to be happening around you. You might as well enjoy the ocean that you're in. All right. Time to do whatever you need to do. If you're watching this in some other class, hopefully you managed to get through it. It's kind of a long one today, over 10 minutes. Anyway, good luck. I'll see you soon, and go Falcons.